And we are now live. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Bienvenue. Willkommen to everyone throughout the world watching us in all different languages, of course, in English and in Scottish. This is the Friday edition of the Working Lunch, the show that's on 1 o'clock every day that everyone stops for, or at the very least looks up from their soup to be watching. Today, my very, very special guest is Mr. Ian Knowlson, or is it Baron Ian Knowlson of Merseyside? Is that your full title?
No, not a Baron.
Ian, good afternoon. How has your week been so far?
It's good. It's been good. Yeah, a lot of things have happened in the week. I think for all of us, it's been an interesting, challenging week. But yeah, not bad. And yourself, you've been busy, Stephen. You've had this big conference, haven't you?
It's been a crazy week, and I have to say I can take very little credit for it. But on Wednesday was the I don't know if it was the 10th, maybe it's the 10th annual UK Recruitment Technology Showcase, where vendors who are supplying the UK recruitment agency sector, everyone who's involved in producing CRMs or video recruitment software or any number of other bits of kit for agencies, were all there. There were 15 vendors altogether. And this was the first year it was online for the first time. Usually it's an in real life event where you're shaking real hands, but it was all done virtually on Wednesday, and it was kind of crazy. I'm just noticing people on the side here. We have Ian Franklin, Louise is here. Hello, fellas. That's a bit sexist. Mike Hayden, Helene. Now, I have to ask, we always ask at the beginning of the Working Lunch, everyone who's joined us, as you come in and get your seats and choose your lunch partners, what have you had for lunch today? Let's get some feedback on that. Ian, have you had your lunch so far?
No, I'm waiting till afterwards. Although I do have an apple here in case I get hungry and some water, but no, not yet.
Very good. Yeah, do you know apples are? There was a politician who famously, he was a big chap, but went on a diet, and all he did was he ate apples and Diet Coke. And shrunk to half his size, so you can never knock an apple. I love an apple, but I don't know if you do it, but I give an apple a good bashing before I tuck into it.
A bashing? No, I don't know that one. That's a new one. I tend to polish it like a good cricketer, like a Yorkshireman would do.
I like a freshly bruised apple.
Do you?
Yeah. It matches my personality. Ian, I can see Ian's had a ploughman's. Helen has a cheese and ham toasty. Pippa, what have you had for lunch? Has it been something dramatic? Is it salad? Is it pizza? Usually we have Graham Palfrey Smith, don't you?
I do, yes. Yeah.
Graham is usually on. He was hosting a show earlier in the week he was doing the show with Tony Goodwin, and Graham almost always has something exotic, usually curry or whatever. And you think, at lunchtime, is this one of those long lunches where you've got 15 courses coming? But bruised apple. No, nothing wrong with a bruised apple. Debbie is calling in from
the US, I think.
From the other side of the Atlantic, the other side of the pond. So getting on to the topic of the day, and please, anyone on the side, please ask questions, please chip in. We shouldn't be responsible for the content of this show because we need all the help we can. So as Ian was saying there, I was involved with Louise on Wednesday with the UK Recruiter event, and there were maybe 3 times the number of attendees that are normally there for the physical event, maybe more than 3 times actually. And every session that the companies, the vendors had great attendance. People were bouncing from one to the other. And at the beginning, the funniest part of the beginning, in the real life event, I usually host the not the speed pitching, but the elevator pitches where every one of the vendors gives a 2-minute pitch. So they were all coming on and off screen, and it was quite funny. And given their 2-minute pitches on what they're about. But surprisingly, I say surprisingly, it was planned not to be. It was planned to be flawless, and actually it turned out to be flawless. Aside from, I can't take credit, but aside from me chipping in, everything went as smooth as pie. Who do we have on the side here? Just Ram. Shafiq has upgraded his RAM from 8 to 32. That's not lunch. No, it's definitely not lunch. But whatever floats your boat, Shafiq, that's absolutely fine. So getting away from me, because Ian, I'm not the topic of the show. Ian, for anyone who doesn't know you, and shame on them if they don't, can you give people a bit of a background on your experience in recruitment? You've been in recruitment even longer than me.
I don't know how long you've been in, Stephen, but I'm into my 36th year. Yeah, which is interesting when you sit and look at it back over those years and what's happened in recruitment.
I'm at the 33 mark.
Okay.
Mark, so,
and I started off in permanent recruitment in the 80s and then did contract recruitment in IT as well as, I was doing permanent IT recruitment in the 80s, then contract recruitment.
Yeah.
All of this is before the web, before emails, before fax machines, which was actually quite amusing. Then
I used to be a fax machine salesman. Did I ever tell you that? before they were popular.
And then, so what else? What do I do now? So the most important thing is what I do now. I mean, I've had a long career. I ended up my years as a director of Hayes, doing selling MSP RPO and doing public sector and everything else. Last 9 years, I've been running my own training, coaching business, and we work, generally speaking, as growth coaches with lots of businesses up and down the UK, recruitment businesses, and we're focusing on helping owners to grow their organisations and get them to some exciting places where they can make serious life choices for themselves. So that's what we do. That's what I do.
Fantastic. Ian Franklin on the side. Do you know Ian Franklin at all?
I do. Ian and I used to be connected with an organisation called Innovo many years ago.
So Ian reckons that he beats you by a good 2 years.
That's something to be proud of.
I have to ask Ian, if you were a recruiter in IT in the 80s, how was your collection of pinstripe suits?
I only had one. I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, probably, maybe 2. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I can't remember. It's a long time ago.
Back in those days, even Bill Burman had pinstripe suits.
The whole world wore a pinstripe suit. You know.
I think there are definitely pictures of me kicking around in a pretty nifty pinstripe with a smart tie, fully flowered, and a full Windsor knot.
Yeah.
But it was the 80s. That's what you did.
Yeah, we did. What with it? We were all called yuppies, weren't they? Margaret Thatcher, young and upwardly mobile. That's what they were. We were all, weren't we? Yeah.
Young and there was a few acronyms going around. I think there was one which was Lombard. If you were a Lombard, that would stood for lots of money but a right dick. I bumped into a few Lombards in my day.
And then I think we all moved from yuppies to dinkies, didn't we? Which was double income, no kids yet.
Yeah.
Right? I can't remember. I lost track after that.
Do you know I've never been a dinky. I've always been a sinky. I look at people with 2 incomes and I just get jealous, frankly.
Yeah.
The wage coming into the house, that would be fabulous. So, Ian, I've mentioned what I've been doing this week, and actually, some of the things I've been doing this week has been working on your website. But let's not dwell on that. We can speak with that later. But your week, what's been the content of your week so far?
Right. Okay. So, some of it I can't talk about because I do a lot of coaching of people. So yeah, I can't really talk. But they're all confidential, you know. I'm coaching executives, but what do I do? So some of the time I'm working with a back office funder, as you know, and other people know because I was on Louise's show last week. Simplicity, and that is fascinating because Simplicity are supporting. I don't know the exact this week, but something of the order of 200 to 300 recruitment agencies across the UK. Yeah. So the aggregate figures they get on what the market is doing are fascinating. And look, we're all in the same boat. We're all recruiting. Yeah. Let's celebrate something which is really positive. Recruitment is growing again.
So on if I can pause you there. So one thing I'm really jealous of you for is that with the work that you do, but also the work with Simplicity, you've got a helicopter view of the recruitment industry, what's going on, who's doing what, the ups and downs. And you can put your finger in the air and see how the wind's blowing. So is there any insight that you can share with us on that side of things?
Yeah, I can. So the most positive thing that I would like to celebrate and share with everybody is that the construction industry is bouncing back very strongly. So the figures this week to last week alone, the construction industry figures have gone forward quite a lot.
Yeah.
14%. But most importantly, since the low point several weeks ago, it's gone up nearly 100%, and we're now back above where we were end of March. Almost, but not quite, almost back to where we were before lockdown. Now, before we all get too excited, construction in March is normally traditionally at a lower point than construction would be at the end of June, July, because you can't go. It's a lot harder to dig holes in the ground when you've got 4 inches of water on it. So
that's tricky.
And if you all remember, we had a very, very wet February, and then it didn't rain probably till May, I seem to remember. So that was construction, and that's good. And all the numbers are up. All the numbers are going up. So what else have I got?
Construction is one of those sectors where, and I could be corrected wrong, but it seems to me that you can be socially distant working on construction sites. People are not crowded into an office. They're generally speaking, they're in the open or they're spaced out. So it's the sort of business that you think could come back quicker than call centers say.
And I'm, as you know, I'm a non-exec of a couple of agencies as well, and one of those is a construction company. And I'm not seeing any end in sight to that growth, and that's positive and that's healthy. Regrettably for you, my good friend, most of the return and bounce back is in England, and Scotland and Wales are a bit lagging behind, purely and simply because their economies and their governments have only just in the last 24 hours started to, release, their lockdowns that they have in quite tightly. But I mean, it's good for everyone. It's very good for everyone, because the great thing about construction is when people go out and buy a house, they normally then go out and buy other things. So they buy carpets, curtains, washing machines, and that has a multiplier effect on the economy. The things that are growing fast the other two things that are growing fast now are engineering and industrial. And that means manufacturing's getting back. Obviously, IT is up again, but IT didn't really drop as much as the other sectors. What else is here? Oh, and obviously healthcare. Healthcare's an interesting one. Healthcare went down, then back up, then down. It's kind of followed the COVID curve, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can imagine there'd be some sectors like healthcare where there would be stop-start depending on what parts of healthcare you were involved in, whether it be care homes or social care or hospitals or indeed surgeries. A lot of surgeries will have closed down, but a lot of hospitals busier than ever.
And I'm putting healthcare in one big lump. I'm not segregating it out. Education bouncing back strongly, as you would expect. Financial sector, commercial sectors, are all doing very well. You won't be surprised. Oil and gas. It's pretty. So really, I mean, it's positive. It's good stuff. It's good news, and that's. So you asked me how my week is. So that's good. Doing some work with outside the UK. So I'm coaching some people in the US, which is quite interesting. I'm working. I'm on a. What can I say? I'm working on a pan-European conference that I'll be hosting with Cisco, hopefully later this month, early next month, which is quite interesting as well. But yeah, it's good. It's been a good week. The weather's been crap. Can we say crap on your show?
You can absolutely. You can say it with shite if you like. So you say the weather's been crap. Actually, the weather in Scotland has been glorious. So it might be that we're lagging behind in our bounce back out of lockdown. But the weather here has been glorious all week. And it's about 21 degrees right now. So, and on behalf of all the people of Scotland, and I like to speak on behalf of the people of Scotland, whenever you guys get worse weather than us, there's
really good, do you?
You can hear the cheers in the streets, because normally normally, frankly, we're getting all the rain, and we're at least 3 to 5 degrees cooler. When I see the weather in London and they say, oh, it's going to be scorching, then it's a bit like hearing the football scores when they say, Man United 5, and the next one's going to be, Leicester 2. So it's the same with the weather in Scotland. London 25, Glasgow 13.
Well, yes. So we had a period of time, probably from mid-March right the way through till at least when was VE Day, 7th of or 8th of what was it, the 9th of May. It didn't rain. It did not rain. We had no rain, no rain at night, no rain during the day. It didn't rain, and we've had very mild up until the last 2 weeks, probably until the end of May. Again, very little rain.
The very last thing that the people in the home counties want is a hosepipe ban, because as it is, 2020 has not been the best of years. So all they need for there to be more riots in the streets would be a hosepipe ban. That would bring out the middle classes, frankly, rioting on the streets. So you can just imagine them. But I did want to ask. So I on a Tuesday, along with Louise, I do a show on startups, recruitment agency startups, people who are taking the plunge. They're choosing now as a good time to step out of their old agency, maybe because businesses is at an ebb, it's at a low point. Often the thing that often holds back recruiters from leaving is that they've got a ton of commission due to them, and if they leave, they have to wash their hands of that. But when the commissions expected are low, then it feels easier to step away, weirdly. But you might also say, well, why would you go and do it now? Because confidence is low. But we're seeing that a lot of people are making that leap. They're thinking now is a good time to do the groundwork, get ready, live frugally, but set up that new agency that I'd always been planning to do. I know I can make placements, and I know me and my partners can make a company that will make a go of it. So with working with the likes of Simplicity, you'll have people, because invoice funding is one of the key things when you're looking to fund a startup. Is there feedback on that sort of thing where you're seeing an uptick, or?
No, I'll come straight out. I think. Okay, so yeah, it is up. I don't know the exact percentage terms but even if you look at the number of registrations with companies house of recruitment businesses in the last 6 to 8 weeks, it's up quite considerably. Applications and people contacting us to open up recruitment businesses are significantly higher than they've ever been. In fact, I talk to a lot of people in other sectors, nothing to do with recruitment. I think what the COVID experience has done for those of us involved in selling is it's got rid of what is often referred to as the tire kickers.
Yeah.
People who are not really that interested. So you either get people who want to buy your product, or you get somebody who's not interested. So that means, from an efficiency point of view, the whole sales process is massively efficient.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, it's a good time. Oddly enough, I got into a debate with a young man on LinkedIn the other day who said it was the worst time ever to open. And I'll be honest with you,
it's on LinkedIn, surely not.
And I think there is a long track record of very, very famous entrepreneurs who've started their business in lockdown or with virtually next to nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't know the personal circumstances of every one of these, but if you look at there's something like 25 names of people who started their business either in a recession or when they literally had lost their job, or they were out, or they got nothing, or they were destitute. They include Lord Sugar, Richard Branson, Oprah Winfrey, the guy that set up Walmart. I'm trying to think. Walter, isn't it? I think.
Walton.
Yeah. Who's the other ones? There's a long list, a really, really long list of people.
Yeah.
But just setting them a business in lockdown or in a recession isn't necessarily a prerequisite for success.
Yeah, you don't have to start in a recession.
But if you have to, then you've got as good a motivation as any. And as you say, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Afternoon, I'd be interested to know what the spectators on the or listeners on the
so the mix of the people out in the chat and people who are logged in and watching are a mixture of in-house recruiters, agency recruiters, marketeers, all involved in the sector. Debbie's a recruiter in the States, and on that point, Ian, I'm always fascinated. Well, as a recruiter, I'm a born nosy Parker, so obviously the nosy Parker came before I was a recruiter, so it's kind of the perfect business for me to be in. But I sometimes say to people that even though I'm not placing people now, I do miss it. I'm not going to go back to it, but I do miss it. I do miss aspects of it. And if someone said, what do you do? I would say I'm a recruiter. If you cut me, I bleed CVs. Would you say that at heart you are a recruiter, or are you something else?
Oh, that's a great question.
And then the reason I asked a guy on Tuesday who'd started his own business, and he said, actually, no, I'm not that good a recruiter, and I'm not a recruiter at heart, but I'm a very good manager. So he'd set up a business and hired great recruiters, but he didn't see himself as a recruiter, more as a businessman.
I think to answer your question, Stephen, I probably am doing now what I do because it's what I truly and passionately believe in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to share something with people. Okay. I had a one of those road to Damascus moments in my career.
A revelation.
Yeah. So if you'd have asked me, probably when I'm in my late 50s now. So if you'd have asked me as I was in my mid 40s what I wanted to do, I'd have said I was a recruiter.
Yeah.
But as I got into my late 40s and approaching 50, I started thinking, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And it was at that point that I said, actually, I don't want to do this. Again, it's not uncomfortable sharing this with people nowadays, but it also came after a period when I'd had 4 or 5 years going through some counselling around mental health to do with my issues with my childhood. And I'll be honest with you, when I finished that and completed that, I realised the things that motivated or had motivated me to be a recruiter, which is answering your question as I am, had gone. And it's like, okay, so what is my raison d'etre? What is my purpose in life? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
And that's why I do now what I do, because I could probably earn far more as a recruiter than I do as a coach.
Tell me about it.
But the rewards are immense. I mean, when you coach somebody, and I emphasize the word coach, you take somebody on a journey for 2, 3, 4, sometimes you're with them for 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's probably not a coach, but in a way, the relationship changes as you go on that journey.
Well, there's a degree of mentor and therapy involved in that, and people getting to the point where they trust you enough to share things they maybe would previously never admitted to themselves even, but that they can unload that, and I suppose that completely gets into the area of well-being and feeling good about what yourself and what you do and how you represent yourself to the world. Because as a recruiter, and going back to that time of the 80s when we were at it, it was a very lads culture. I mean, there were a lot of female recruiters, but it was very bullish. It was all swaggering up to the board, putting up your placements and so on, and it was pretty macho. And there's a path that you get on when you're in the zone and you're making those placements, or you're getting promoted, or you're building your career. And I can easily see that some people get to points where there's something that pulls them up short, and they have a review of where they're up to, and they realize, actually, that suited me before, but it doesn't anymore. And I think I should indulge myself. I should treat myself to a change in career, and I'll feel better, going to bed at night.
You are right. You're right, Stephen, and that's where we ultimately get to, and that's why I do what I do now. And the biggest kick I get is, as I put it, transforming people's lives. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, some of the people that I work with today and have been, I mean, I can think of a couple of young people who are probably in their early 30s now that I started working with 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, there's one young gentleman who will remain nameless, and you know, he was not in a good place. He was financially struggling. He was coming from a north of England deprived background.
Yeah.
Was probably struggling to earn much more than 14-15 grand, and had been working in a BT or a call center somewhere.
Yeah.
Struggling to make more than £15 a week bonus. £15 a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
The same young man today lives in a reasonably large 4-bedroom detached house in the north of England. He's got a wife, he's got 2 children, and he's earning 70 to 80 grand a year, and he's earning more than anybody in his family's ever done.
Yeah.
And he's had to go through 4 or 5 periods in his life where he's changed. And you know what? COVID is affecting us all right now. So, you know, there's no reason why he and other people don't go through that again. And that's what being a coach is about.
Yeah.
It's not about walking in there and saying, look, I've got some great way of doing things, follow my script.
Yeah.
It's about supporting, mentoring, and leading that person on their own personal journey.
Well, certainly as a punctuation mark, the whole coronavirus has pulled everyone up short and had to take stock. You know, am I doing the thing that I want to be doing? And as I was saying before, I think the ultimate in luxury is treating yourself to a life that you enjoy, and not simply, you know, working for the man, and the man can be any number of things, but not simply working on someone else's schedule, but suiting yourself. And as you say, you know, you and I could probably make quite a bit more money if we went back to recruitment. But having done that and enjoyed it all the same, it's a difficult thing to go back on that, because to an extent you need to put the blinkers on and be focused on that one thing. You can't be a part-time recruiter, I don't think.
No.
You have to be living it. Or there's a couple of people on the side are asking. Pippa asked, "Did you ever ring a bell as well as write on the board, Ian?"
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Yeah, I worked for computer people for a while. I think we had a bell at one point. Yeah, we did. Yeah, interesting. I'm trying to remember what else we did. Writing on the board was definitely the big thing, wasn't it? Writing your deals up. Yeah.
I make a point of, if I had a score, well, I would try and stop bursting out when I got the call that said we're making your guy an offer, or speaking to him and accepted. But I would try and pause until the right time of the day where there was a lull in proceedings, you know, where the phones had gone quiet, where I could make a bit of a show and swag it up to the board, and what I might do, the person who was just behind me in the rankings for that month, I'd make a point of, you know, doing it well within the shot of them. Yeah. So all the macro rubbing it in. Yeah.
Good picture here, my friend.
But yeah, we all grow up. Pippa didn't like the bell. And do you know, I can see how it would. There's a couple of recruiters I worked with who were totally not matched, and in fact, women who were fabulous recruiters, and they got on with their work. They put the money on the board. They didn't follow those conventions of the guys, and they did phenomenally well. But they didn't make a big deal of it. And their personalities absolutely suited the type of recruitment they were doing. So it's certainly wrong now to assume that everyone in recruitment has that personality, and that kind of recruitment doesn't really, it doesn't work for the most part. You can't.
I think Louise has posed a good question there. Can't be a part-time recruiter, and I think that's interesting because we've moved into a new world. I spend a lot of my time, besides coaching people, speaking at conferences about the future of recruitment and the future of talent. And in effect, this is what I'm going to be doing I'm hosting this conference for Cisco. We're talking about the future of work. And one of the big shifts that's happened in COVID, in this COVID experience, is we've gone from the, work from home experiment to work from home is going to be part of the new future to a greater or lesser extent. And Louise's question is quite an interesting one, because in preparation for that conference, speaking to a number of people, And I think it's globally accepted now that, you know, most people will spend a period of their week, whether it's a day, whether it's 2 days, whether it's more, whether it's 5 days, working from home, which gives, I mean, I get tingles down the back of my spine when I think about where the world will go in the next 5 or 10 years. Because if you look at where we're at, I live not far from Manchester, and 200 years ago, there started near here a revolution that transformed the whole of the world. And within a matter of about 50 years, at the turn of the 19th century, sorry, the turn of the 20th century, 19th to 20th century, London was the largest city on the planet. New York was second, and Manchester was fifth in the world in terms of size. And by then, 80% of the world's population lived within 5 or 10 miles of a city. Gone back 50 to 100 years prior to that, it was nothing. It was like 20% were in cities. So that revolution has taken place. Now, come to where we are today with work from home, with video conferencing. You know, if you only have to go in your office 2 days a week physically, well, Stephen, you could live on the Isle of Skye, my friend, or somewhere even more beautiful like Islay, and you know, you have to get to the mainland, you know, or down to Glasgow for, you know, a meeting or 2 meetings a week.
I did grow up in Mull.
Well, it's a beautiful part of the world. I mean, unless anybody has never been to the Hebrides, they need to go out there and just because it is one of the most beautiful picturesque places in the world, let alone in the UK. So, and I see that happening. So, coming back to Louise, can people be a part-time recruiter? It depends what we define as part-time, but I don't think this 9 in the morning till 5 at night.
Well, I think you can be a distance recruiter. I think that's been proven. You can be a distance recruiter. Can you work fewer than 40 or 30 hours a week on recruitment? And I stand to be corrected. I'm happy to be corrected. But my views, and there's a big difference between perm recruitment and temp. I was never a temp recruiter. And temp recruiters, you kind of have to be part social worker to be a temp recruiter because you're always on. The phone goes in the middle of the night. One of your temps hasn't turned up and so on and so on. But as a perm recruiter, you have batches of work that you're working on, separate projects, and you can lift and lay them according to what suits. And at the end of the day, for the most part, you can drop it and go home. But when you're working on a project, you are immersed in it. And if you're slower than your competitors, if you find the best candidate slightly after your competitor found the best candidate, then you don't get the fee. And there is a winner takes all. So in contingency recruitment, usually there's a race to find that candidate. If you're working, my view is if you're working 2 days a week as a recruiter, then 3 days a week, people are overtaking you. So in terms of part-time, I think, well, certainly that's my view at the minute, but as I say, I stand to be corrected. If there are people out there who are working, 2 days a week or spreading, a couple of hours a day over 5 days, I'd love to know about it, and I'd like to know what the secret is.
I think, well, I used to have I had a number in the end working for me when I was at Hayes, of what you're calling part-time recruiters, and they were very successful. There's one young lady, I probably shouldn't mention her name, but she was one of our top billers, and she left to have a baby. She came back and said, could I work 3 days a week? And she made it successful. She made it work. What she did, and you're 100% correct, if she was doing temp and she was or reacting to contract work, she'd have struggled. But she was doing perm recruitment, and what she did was she would get her clients to sign up to a project plan, and she was delivering her assignments against that project plan, and they were exclusive.
So that's quite timely, because Shafiq on the side just mentioned that you could do contingency on an exclusive basis and then manage your time. So you're working to a project. If you've got a retainer up front, if you're the retained recruiter for that assignment, then you don't need to be concerned about the competitors nipping in the same way as they would before. So maybe part-time, if you're working on a retainer, then that could be done. Yeah, I could see that.
The fascinating thing about this young lady was she worked 3 days a week, and she still managed to deliver the same quota as somebody who was working 5 days a week.
Wow, that's some going.
Which actually was a win for us, because we only had to pay 3/5 of her salary. But if I'm totally honest, she probably did more than 3 days a week. But again, she made it work. Equally, I've had people over the subsequent years who weren't willing to make it work, and I think you have to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think it's good. So what Graham just said, I've had a lot of recruiters work for me over the years on a part-time basis. It can work very well. There you go. Yeah, excellent. Good. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think that's where we're moving. That's where some people are moving their recruitment models to. But you're right. If you're doing contingency or temp, somebody gives you a booking now. While you're talking to me, I've got a WhatsApp group on my right-hand side here of one of the recruitment agencies that I'm a non-exec for, and it's Friday, and they're a construction recruitment company, and they are literally filling bookings while we've been on this.
Wow.
Any part-time.
But any agency owner, they love to see placements racking up. Fridays are brilliant for that. So one of the things that we always do on a Friday, Ian, is review the news in the world this week. And of course, we look at everything from a recruitment perspective, because recruitment is life, or employment is life in large degree. I'm not saying it's everything, but it's certainly a big part of it. Most people work one way or another. In terms of what's been in the news this week that stood out for you, what's been the big drama as far as you're concerned?
Wow, what's the big news? Well, you've got the Black Lives Matter campaign, which I think is global, and it's. I think it's a very important campaign.
Yeah,
and I think it is important. I think it's important that we recognise that all lives matter, but in the context of what we witnessed a few weeks ago on our television screens in America, that was abhorrent by anybody's standards, and I don't think there's anybody who can argue that. So that's important. I'd like to actually. I'm going to share something with your.
Please.
Here. I'm actually a Liverpool fan, and you're going to hear something really rare.
Liverpool's my foreign team.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to praise Marcus Rashford.
Yeah,
what Marcus Rashford has done this week, and how he's got the government to make a U-turn. And actually, you know what? Let's not beat Boris and his people up for making a U-turn politically. He's made a U-turn, and it's the right thing to do. And Marcus Rashford, top marks to the guy.
Yeah.
Take my hat off to him. And I think that's tremendous. And let's all get behind him on that, because it's
absolutely agree. On the U-turn thing, I think everyone who campaigns for governments to change their mind on something, they want the government to U-turn. So I wouldn't give anyone a hard time for taking account of new information and then changing their mind. That's what reasonable people should do. Marcus Rashford, I have to say, I didn't know that much about it, and I came to the story late. But it turns out that the charity work, the volunteer work that he's done, aside from just this campaign, is really quite extraordinary. And I think he's only still 23, 24. But raised millions. What on lockdown he's been learning to sign, because he was going to be involved in a prize giving event by a deaf charity. So he's been learning to sign and improving himself. And clearly he's got good people in his corner from a PR point of view. But the work that he's already been doing is quite something, where a lot of footballers, frankly, they live the life, they spend the money, and I personally, I don't think footballers have to have the responsibility of being role models, but it is refreshing when they are and they do good things, because it can have an effect.
And take the hat off to the lad. I mean, my wife's involved in education. She's the clerk to a number of multi-academy trusts in and around Cheshire and Manchester.
Yeah.
One of my close friends is the CEO of the Wythenshawe Housing Trust, which has very close links with Marcus.
Yeah.
Because Marcus is from Wythenshawe. That's his background. That's where that's the platform which gives him the right to stand up and shout about this cause.
He's literally giving back.
Yeah, he is giving back. And, take the hat off to the lad. As you say, the footballers, a number of the footballers haven't filmed themselves with glory in lockdown. I mean, and a number of people have questioned the value of what they do. But, good old Marcus, I believe, raised several £million for this. And I also know of other footballers who've come in alongside him. So, that's one of the things. You asked me what stood out for me in the week. That's what stood out for me, because to me, it's a little bit like, the captain, I don't know where he is now, Major Tom story, which the nation grabbed hold of. It's somebody who's coming forward and actually standing up for the rights.
It's a good news story, and everyone appreciates that a good news story, especially right now. When you hear these things coming out, whether there's a few footballers I've heard who are major shareholders in hotels, and they've just turned over the hotels to homeless people for the duration of the shutdown, that sort of thing. It's great to hear. So in terms of other things this week, I wouldn't want to put the onus on other folk unduly, but and I should say from the off, I have very few friends who are black or of other colours. I do, but I wouldn't claim anything on account of that. And frankly, living in Glasgow, the opportunity is not really there in the same as if you were living in London or other big cities in England. But I've had conversations with black people this week that are friends of mine, and I'm just asking more, and kind of feeling weird, because I don't want to give them the burden of having to educate me, but I do want to hear what they've got to say. And that they should feel more free in saying what maybe they've been thinking, and it's not been that there hasn't been the okay to share what they're thinking, other than with other people with the same backgrounds and the same shade of skin. So it's been definitely, for me, it's been a week this week where I've either learned more or been reassured that I was broadly on the right path, but again reassured that it's okay to ask, it's okay to talk. If you do it with respect, then it's absolutely fine. And there's always new things that you learn. There's always new things that you learn that you think, actually, I've really benefited from. In history, whatever's happened in the past has meant that the road has been a bit smoother for me. Sometimes, literally, the road has been smoother because cities have been built on the backs of the history that is now being revealed to be not quite as shiny as it might have been. In Glasgow, certainly we always talked about the tobacco lord, and Glasgow, Liverpool, Bristol. These cities all had docks where people were in that triangle. But of course, part of that triangle was slavery, which meant that there was a black population from a couple of hundred years ago in Liverpool and Bristol. Didn't really happen in Glasgow, but so there's a long history there, and I think in Cardiff as well. So it's always a revelation to find out more and to realise more and just rejig your way of thinking. So certainly from an educational point of view, that's always very good, although can be a bit uncomfortable when you realise that you've been in the wrong in some ways.
I think one of the issues for me, Stephen, is what HR people would call unconscious bias.
Yeah.
And that's what shocks me. Is I think it's only when that is pointed out to you, you think, gosh, I don't consider myself to be racist, but actually, consciously, by expressing myself in the way I have or thinking the way I do, there's a degree of unconscious bias. And you know what? I'm very, very comfortable that people, pick. I mean, I've got kids now that are all in their. Well, the youngest actually is 19, so he's just a teenager, but the rest are in their 20s.
Yeah.
As they went through their teenage years, they literally every week would just hold a mirror up to me and challenge my idiosyncrasies and my non-conformities and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that I'm anything better than the average man, but I do think as a person, it does make you look at yourself and think, oh, wow, God.
Yeah.
And the Black Lives Matter thing, I think that's another opportunity for us to take a hard look at ourselves and the way we approach things and the way we do business and the way we interact with people and look for those unconscious biases. And they are there. So, yeah, good.
Yeah, yeah.
Even talking to Martin Sheen.
Oh.
Thank you, Graham. That's very nice. Oh gosh.
Have you had the Martin Sheen comment much before?
I have. Do you know what? When I was younger, there's a picture of me, and I'm told I look like I don't look like him now, Tom Cruise. But yeah, no, I might that one. Yeah, yeah. Back to the Future, wasn't it? Yeah, very good. I quite like that one, Graham. You're welcome.
We'll have to think. Who does Graham remind us of?
You're not taking me on that one. You're on your own, Dave. You're on your own.
Graham,
the wig reminds me of, but it looks more like a Space Invader. It's very impressive.
Very good.
Debbie reminds me of Carly Simon, if she's not offended at that.
I think that's a pretty good compliment. Carly Simon, I don't think anyone would say that was a bad thing, but I hope Debbie isn't offended. A
young version of Carly Simon. Yeah. I hate to add. Carly's quite old now, but the pictures of her in the 1980s, early 90s, she was. Yeah. I love Carly Simon. I'll take that. Yeah.
Debbie is now one of our hosts, I think, on Tuesday. Is it Tuesday, Debbie? Debbie's a real character. So if you get to see Debbie,
forward that nobody does it better. So there you go.
No, nobody does it better. There you go. Next week we're up to time. I should very quickly ask what's next week got in store for you? Is it the Cisco thing next week?
What am I doing next week? Gosh, I don't know. Well, I go into full swing with this coaching in the US as well as the commitments in the UK. So busy week next week. Boundaries will be my issue because my working day will start at 7 in the morning and potentially go on until 7, 8, 9 at night. I've got to be very careful about that.
Well, let me do a quick run through on the guests that we have on the Working Lunch next week. Louise has Simon Connell on Monday. Onboarding hires is in a remote working world. GPS, Graham Poffrey-Smith, has Paul Chamberlain on Tuesday, getting ready to return legally. A glance at some of the, can't see the full title here. What is it? Some of the legal obligations for your staff and your business. Very good. Graham, again, on Wednesday, has Stefan Fiorini. Don't have the topic there. Una McGuinness, I don't know if you know Una McGuinness. She is or was MD of I'm forgetting the name of the business now, but there are multiple NORA winners. So James Whitelock has Una on Wednesday. And next Friday, I have Felix Wetzel, former marketing director at JobSite, and of course now running Pocket Recruiter in the UK. So that's next Friday. On that note, we're a bit over time. I'm going to say thanks very much, Ian. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everyone who's been joining us today in the chat bar and watching. And of course, I hope you all have an absolutely extraordinarily fantastic weekend, and I hope you have a good Father's Day, Ian.
Well, yeah, and I'm hoping that at 7:30, 8 o'clock on Sunday, Liverpool will make it a brilliant one.
That will be fantastic. That'll be come on the Reds. First Premiership. So okay. So on that note, thank you very much. And thank you then. Bye.